Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Rings. This is Jeff Wells. Encourage you, if you want to learn more about Beyond the Rings Olympic Ministry, go to beyondtherings.net. beyondtherings.net. There you can see pictures and videos and stories from previous Olympics. You can see lots of different things. And you can learn about how you can join the BTR support team, Beyond the Rings support team. And we need support team. You know, I'm part of the ground team during the Olympics. Those who are on the ground, whether it's for a few days or for the entire duration of the Olympic Games. And I love that opportunity. But if it were not for the ground team members who were praying, who had given and supported the ground team being there and then sharing, telling others about Beyond the Rings and the Olympic ministry, I simply could not be there in that moment and in that season to make the most of those 17 days. I like to say Olympic ministry is 17 days of Acts 1:8 all in one place. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's being witnesses for Jesus with people from our Jerusalem, our Judea, our Samaria, and literally around the world. And that's what's so unique about the Olympics. So I invite you to join the team, be part of the support team, and join us in what God is planning to do at the next Olympics, which is Paris 2024. Today, I want to share with you a short story that I call Tag Team Evangelism. And so it was the Winter Games of Sochi 2014. We were in Russia. And my friend Terry Veazey, who is an international evangelist, and I were teamed together with Tanya, a Russian sister in Christ, who was able to join us for that day and provide interpretations for us, which that's always a challenge wherever we go where English is not the native language. But as is typically the case, the younger people are, many places in the world, they have young people take English as a second language. So many younger people will have exposure to English, if not very fluent in English. And quite frankly, found the lack of English, or at least comfort with English, during our time in Russia was a challenge. But thankfully on this day, we had Tanya with us, who was able to provide interpretation for us because she was Russian and was able to interpret for us as she knew very good English. We just entered Olympic Park that day. We didn't have event passes, but we had what are called day passes, where you pay like $20 and you can buy a pass just to kind of walk around Olympic Park, which is pretty cool in and of itself. And we got to do that several days, but not every day because they only had so many thousands available. And when they were gone, they were gone. And so but thankfully, we were able to get to the park early enough to that day and get park passes for that day. We were walking around Olympic Park. We just entered the Olympic Park. And one of the things that we discovered, at least I discovered, in being in Russia during the 2014 Sochi Games, was how over-the-top friendly and engaging and even proud the Russian people were to be hosting the Olympic Games on their soil. You may not be aware of this, but obviously many of us are familiar with the many years of tension between USA and Russia, the former Soviet Union, which led, you may not know this, USA boycotted the Moscow Winter Games in 1980. So President Jimmy Carter did not send athletes to Moscow for the 1980 Games. And then in retaliation, the Soviet Union boycotted the Los Angeles Summer Games in 1984 by not sending athletes to the United States. And so with all these decades of tension, and with the most recent in Olympic history, 1980 and 1984 is recent tension between these two countries. I think one of the reasons why many of the Russian people we met were so friendly is because they were happy to be hosting this international event on their turf in their country. And one of the ways that was expressed was many of the Russian people we met would almost trip over themselves to give us gifts. And this wouldn't just be, I've had a nice conversation with you, it's been nice to meet you, I want to give you a gift. that happen frequently. But even just walking, I was literally walking down the sidewalk one day, and this guy, I'd not talked to him, hadn't had an opportunity to have a gospel conversation with him. He just walked up to me and he said, "You're an American?" And I said, "Yeah." And he pulls out this Russian stacking doll and he gives it to me, and he's like, "A gift for you." And he walks away. I'm like, okay. Well, it's a fun doll. I don't even know where it is right now, but I have it somewhere in one of my boxes. And but it's a Russian nesting doll, as you know. They'll here's a doll, you pull it apart, it's made out of wood. Here's another one smaller. Well, they were all the Russian leaders, from Putin to Brezhnev, and on down. And it was a fun little doll to get. I mean, even back down Stalin, okay? But that's the kind of generosity just the average Russian would do. I was on a train one time and sat next to this older gentleman, and actually, we weren't sitting next to each other. We were standing in line waiting to use the restroom on the train. And we strike up a conversation. I get to share with him about Jesus using the Olympic pen. And he gets all kinds of excited because he understands English, but he doesn't speak English real well. So he's like, "Oh, wait, I have something for you." And so he goes back and he gets his adult daughter and a box, and he comes back to me. I'm still waiting to use the restroom. And he gives me a box of Russian chocolates. A box of Russian chocolates. How great is that? And he was so thrilled to be able to present this gift to me. And yes, I ate the chocolates, and yes, they were amazing. And I saved the box because it was just such a wonderful souvenir from a great encounter I had with this Russian older gentleman and his adult daughter. And it was just an example of the generosity of the Russian people. They were just great. Absolutely loved being in Russia during the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games. Well, on this particular day, I'm in Olympic Park. I'm teamed up with Terry. We have Tanya as an interpreter with us. And not long after we entered Olympic Park, this young boy, about 7, 8 maybe years old, probably no older than 9, and his dad make their way over to us. You may not know this, but Americans are pretty easy to spot internationally. We're kind of loud. We do wear kind of team colors that kind of show red, white, and blue. And so, they quickly discovered that we were Americans. And so this little boy pulls out a little magnet. And I think it was a statue of Stalin, if I remember correctly. And he's so excited to give this magnet to me. And it says something else in Russian. I think Tanya told me that it was basically the name of a town. So she assumed this was something that their town had made up for them to take and give out during the Olympics. And this little boy was just so thrilled. And so I was very gracious in receiving this gift, because it was very special. And then I used that opportunity to tell them I had a gift for them, and it was an Olympic pen, and I'll give it to them if they'll let me tell you the story behind it. And of course, having Tanya there to interpret, it was beautiful. So I began the gospel conversation. I began explaining the gospel to them. And at the time, we were using an Olympic pen called the Jesus pen that uses the wordless gospel to present the gospel. And what that means is, it uses 5 different colors, 4 or 5 different colors. Gold for heaven, black for sin, red for the blood of Christ, white for new life, new birth in Christ, green for growing as a Christ follower, and then yellow again as a promise of eternity with God in heaven. So as I began to explain that to them, I don't think I got past the first yellow, and I start coughing, and I couldn't stop coughing. And so it's me and Tanya at this time. Terry had not caught up to us. I don't know if he had stopped to use the restroom or what, but he wasn't right there when I began this whole exchange. And I'm just coughing horribly. And about that time, Terry walks up, and I say to this young boy and his Father, I'm like, please excuse me. My friend Terry will finish telling you about this pen and about God's love for you. So Terry took over and I continued sharing the gospel with him. I make my way over to a concession stand that had just opened, buy a bottle of water, get a drink, kind of get my coughing under control. And I look back and I see that Terry and Tanya are still with this dad and this boy. And so I begin to make my way over. And as I'm heading over, I see them bow their heads to pray. And sure enough, as soon as I get to them, they've finished praying. And Terry says, hey, Jeff, they just prayed to receive Christ. And I was so excited. And I'm like, only God, he took me out of the picture with a coughing fit. And yet, tag team evangelism, I tagged my buddy Terry, and he finished sharing the gospel with them. And this dad and this little boy committed to becoming Christ followers. And so that just really taught me a couple of things. One, I get the privilege to be used by God to have gospel conversations. Every one of us as Christ followers have that. We don't always use that. We don't always make the most of it. But two, as much as he allows us to be part of it, he doesn't need us. And so we need to be grateful for the opportunities that we have to speak into the lives of others, to demonstrate the gospel and to declare the gospel. And I know that was a poignant reminder for me through that experience of those things, that God lets me to be part of some really amazing things, to encounter some great people throughout my life. And that at the end of the day, he's the one who's doing the work. He's the one who's bringing people into the kingdom. He's the one who's making it all come together. And my joy is in being a faithful servant in whatever part of that process I get to have. And I think that's true for every one of us as Christ followers. And so I just want to encourage you to look for those opportunities to be used by God, to ask him to be a part of that process for others who are discovering that light is there and seeing them transition from death to life, from darkness to light. For me, I'm a father of two, been married over 32 years and blessed by all of that. But there's nothing on the earth like being present when you see somebody give their life to Christ and that new life being born. It's humbling. It's a tremendous blessing. And I would just encourage you to look for ways that you can be a part of that in the lives of people around you. Because here's the bottom line. Your pastor, your small group leader, your best friend, whoever are in your life that are Christ followers, they don't know everybody you know. They just don't. And maybe, just maybe, God has brought you into their life for such a time as this, so you can have these gospel conversations with them and point them to Jesus. Thanks for tuning in again today for Beyond the Ring Short Stories. This is Jeff Wells. Again, I invite you to go to beyondtherings.net where you can learn more about this incredible opportunity, 17 days of Acts 1:8, all in one place. Ask you to join the Beyond the Ring support team, where we ask you to pray, give, and share. And join us as we're preparing for Paris 2024 and what God would do on the ground in 17 days to make much of Jesus. Until next time, I'll see you then.